The greatest power anyone can ever have is learning how to read people like a book. You'll be able to see friends versus foe. You'll be able to anticipate betrayal. You'll be able to anticipate attacks. You'll be able to know whom to trust and whom to not trust, who to become friends, and who to keep away from, who to date and who not to date, right? And the thing about this is that a lot of people try to get to know people through other people, right? Like rather than getting the information straight from that person, they usually try to get more information from their friends and family. And don't get me wrong, it's actually it's better than nothing. But the part is that people are unreliable, and they can filter information through their own prejudices and through their own biases, maybe because of their friends or maybe because they're family member. And so to get a real gauge about a person, you can't really ask their friends, because they're gonna tell you whatever helps their friends. Trust me, man. They're somewhere in the background here, right? And also most people who are friends will also ignore red flags about their friends and family, and in order to keep a positive image in their minds. So you have to do this one-on-one, right? Eyeball to eyeball, white knuckling it pretty much. And the first step to becoming good at reading people is to understand that people are not impenetrable. People are not that difficult to read. You have to first be motivated to do it. You got to stop thinking of yourself. It's not a quality of whether or not you have the vision to read people. It's whether or not you have the willingness and the open mind to do that, right? People obviously make an effort to try to hide how they feel. It's a habit. But even though they're trying to conceal it, they're going to unconsciously reveal themselves, simply because humans have an urge to tell people who they are. People have an urge to reveal their true nature, and it's almost like criminals who give cops hints, or criminals who give a hint about who they are. The reason why that is because people don't like to hold their secrets. People don't like to hide their dark side. They want to express it. They want somebody to know who they really are. And so what will happen when you're interacting with people is that people are going to unconsciously let things slip out, unconsciously let some of their true nature come out, and they hope that maybe you don't see it, but they're going to do that. The problem is that we're always getting those little slippages, those slip ups on their part. But the problem is that we're not actually paying attention. We're too much in our heads. Let's keep reading the notes, because I prefer to read the notes. We want to find a way to release that tension. People are dying to reveal who they are, right? And so because of that, they're always unconsciously sending signals of their deepest desires and intentions. And if we're not aware of it, it's our fault. The reason why is because we're just locked into our own minds. We think that what we have to say is more interesting. We think that what we are thinking is more interesting than the other person. We see the other person as a world that's barren, as somebody who's boring, and as somebody who doesn't have as many interesting thoughts as we do. And so as a result, we let narcissism filter how we perceive people. And what that does is that you start to just project your intentions onto other people. You start to project your dark side onto other people. So to the extent that you could drop your self-interest and your ego, you're going to be able to see people for who they are and become more sensitive to the signals that they send out. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how brilliant you are. It's all about to the extent that you are not self-consumed, self-absorbed. It's as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. If you think younger people usually struggle with this the most, because younger people are more self-absorbed when they're younger, right? They lack more theory of mind. They lack self-awareness. So this is more prone to younger people. That's why older people tend to be better manipulators, pretty much, because they get to understand this when they get older, right? So how do you do this? First of all, you got to empty your mind when you're in front of people. And usually if you have too many insecurities, it's going to be really difficult to empty your mind, because there's an underlying tension, an underlying desire to impress them. And how do you know you have that underlying desire to impress them? Pretty much how you take rejection. What do you say to yourself when someone does not like you? How do you feel when somebody does not accept you, does not like you, rejects you, right? That intensity, the level of intensity is usually a reflection of how insecure you are at the end of the day. So that insecurity, when you're in front of them, is always going to be creating a mental dialogue in your mind. How do I say? How do I look? How do I look now? Am I impressing them? Do they like me? And that internal dialogue has a gravitational force, like a black hole that brings all of your thoughts into that one place, where those thoughts are all about how do I get them to like me, right? And because of that, you just stop reading people, and people can sense that. Right? People can sense, man, I gotta stop painting. I gotta stop drawing when I do these videos, people. Always looking like a gut, always looking like a mess. I draw with charcoal sometimes, so it just messes up my fingers. So yeah, empty your mind and pay attention to nonverbal cues. So how do you empty your mind? Bring attention to a physical sensation. Either bring attention to the breath or bring attention to the hand. Calm down, anchor your thoughts into a repetitive action, and that usually is the breath. Now, why is that? You might say, I may not be able to focus when I'm breathing, when I'm aware of my breath. No, those are two completely different parts of your brain. You can actually pay deep attention to the breath while listening to me. Because all you're doing is feeling sensation. You're not analyzing words. You're not making connections. You're just you're just having the sensation, and that feeling of that sensation is more of a primal thing. It's more in your that area is more in your reptilian brain. The part of you that analyzes information, that understands what's going on, is your frontal cortex. And so you could really you're using the two parts of your brain, because someone's like saying, oh, you could be aware of your depression while listening to someone. You know, that's the only way your attention could be in two places: in awareness of physical sensation, and then awareness of words and of things and processing information. You could actually do that. So that's not really a problem. But most of you guys are weak at that because you don't practice it. That muscle is weak. So it's very hard for a lot of you guys to pay attention to the breath and to listen to what people are saying. So that's why this is difficult. So how do you do that? Well, develop a meditation practice. Right? Order my course, Emotional Mastery, or go to a 10-day meditation retreat, right? That will help fix everything in your mind. After that, you want to pay attention to the nonverbal cues. Change what you prioritize when you are observing people. Prioritize the nonverbal, the tone of voice, and the facial expressions and body language more than words. Words are meant to distract you. So when you actually pay attention to that, you're going to notice that once you start getting good at paying attention to the nonverbal cues, you're going to feel almost like a physical anticipation, and you will feel people's moods inside of you, and you'll become more sensitive to their moods. And this is an antenna that we all have in our brain, right? We all have this antenna. The problem is that this antenna has become muffled. This antenna has become blunted. And so this antenna does not really perceive all of the signals that you're getting, and that antenna is meant for that. So you got to retrain it, right? And it's something that's wired inside of every single one of us, and you could train it. But the thing is, you need a reason why. So you got to have a why this is important, right? If you don't have a reason why, then you're not going to do this, because you're just going to be more self-absorbed. So how do you do this? Well, I'm going to teach you guys some ways to do this. One, have an open mind. That's the first thing. Have an open mind. Be ready for anything. When you meet people, you usually have an impression about how they're going to be based on how they appear physically. Like you tend to see that a lot. When I go to meditation retreats, I tend to observe people in the retreat, and I tend to notice maybe this person he looks more of a shy person, or he looks more social. And then once you're able to talk to people, you notice that in reality they weren't as social, or maybe the one you thought was quiet was actually social. So this filter creates a confirmation bias about people, and so you got to be careful with that. With you got to observe what type of first impression people give you based on their physical appearance and what they're dressing, and be conscious of it and move it to the side, and understand that this is just a overall impression that has nothing to do with them. It has more to do with my own projection and what I associate people who dress that way. That's just your own projection. So be ready for anything, because people are backwards. The most evil looking people could be the nicest person, and the nicest persons could be the evilest looking person. So that initial bias, that initial appearance bias, can really mess up everything. And if you're somebody that's very superficial, you're going to fall for this trap. So Confirm, yeah. So the next thing is pay attention to their base levels to look for any diversion. So once you understand your how your bias like colors the way you perceive them initially, and how that perception can potentially become the prism as to how you interpret everything about them, you also have to pay attention to who they are almost every day, right? Who they are. Are they usually chilled? Are they social, extrovert, introverted, quiet, this, that? Pay attention to that, right? Because then one day, if they're usually social, all of a sudden they're quiet. If they're usually quiet, all of a sudden they're social, they might be on crack. If they're usually focused and today they're more distracted. If you're paying attention to any baseline level, you're going to be able to notice those sudden moods. And it's almost like when we're sad and somebody notices. Don't you notice that it's actually a very nice thing for somebody to say, hey, Father Alex, you look a little down today. Oh, thank you for noticing. There's a pleasurable thing in that. So you're really learning how to be more charming by just paying attention to people's baseline level and paying attention to any diversions. That's one thing. Because again, these are all general things that you guys can observe. The next thing is notice. Another way is to observe people in action, right? Especially during moments of crisis. When there's a crisis, that's when you should be even more alert. Notice how they behave when there's a crisis. Notice whether or not they give up quickly, whether or not they start complaining, whether or not they start gossiping and trying to spread their negativity onto other people, whether or not they start pulling away and start running from responsibility. How do they, or maybe they turn tyrannical. How do they react to difficult moments, and also how do they react to success? When things go right in their lives, how do they react? Do they start getting entitled? Do they start seeing you as though you're a peasant? Do they start having an ego because of their success? All of those things is a reflection of their character, and a lot of times we're just not paying attention to that. Why? For the next thing is that you should always be updating people every other month or so, right? Never have a person's perception in your mind static. Always make sure to be updating it and giving it new information. Too many times we have a perception of someone, and that perception of someone in our minds hardens. This person can become a better person over the time. This person might become more tyrannical, but we fail to notice the changes simply because we're too self-absorbed. So this is why humans have extra neurons in our frontal cortex to update how we perceive people. And too many of us develop a static perception of people, right? People change over time, and sometimes improve, and sometimes they don't improve. And so you can't harden the way you see people, because they gave you a good impression at first, and then when they start acting in ways that are more negative, in ways that you kind of don't want them to behave, sometimes we just deny it. Sometimes we just ignore it, and we keep thinking that who they are is the same as they were many years ago, right? And this happens a lot, actually. You might be surprised how often this happens, where we just don't notice the changes in the people in our lives. And what tends to happen is that because you don't notice the changes, one day you wake up and you feel like you don't know them anymore. So that's one thing. All right. Another thing, and last thing, which is very important, is observe the laws of opposites, right? If somebody appears very masculine, 100% there's a fragile femininity within them. If they appear super confident on the outside, I can promise you they're highly insecure on the inside. If they always appear to be happy on the outside, they're usually depressed on the inside. Any exaggeration of one quality on the outside usually proceeds with the complete opposite of that trait on the inside. But what I'm talking about is exaggeration, right? Notice the one quality that they tend to push and exaggerate the most, almost to a point of caricature. And I'm telling you, you could just like a math equation, assume the opposite. You're mostly right about that, And these are some ways that you guys can read people like a book. These are very easy because I didn't really talk about how to digest nonverbal cues because it's a little bit longer video. I'm actually going to put that in my course. But this is how you observe almost anyone. And this is something that if somebody pays attention to you, you'll be able to notice, okay, if somebody does this to me, they'll be able to read me, because you do reveal things about you that people just don't know. People you hope people are not paying attention. You know what I'm saying? And I know you guys are paying attention watching my channel. So Father Alex has said some things that he regrets online, but thank God that my dark side is not that dark. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys ever want to work with me one-on-one, go to mindfulattraction.org. All right, if you guys enjoy these videos about stoicism, dating, relationships, self-help, moving up in life, I would recommend you guys check out some of my courses that I have for sale. These courses are courses for men and women. For example, Nice Girl, Nice Guy is a course about how to become more assertive. Natural Chemistry is a course for women that I have on how to develop strong relationships. Dark Game is a controversial course that I have for guys on how to attract women in their life and keep it. It's not as dark as it seems, but we do talk about some dark psychology in here. Psychological Game of Attraction is a course that we made for women who are single. And as you see, we have a course about how to develop charisma, emotional mastery, which is a course about how to develop a meditation practice and how to improve your emotional life, to become more resilient, to not let rejection hit you so hard, to be able to bounce back from failure. I have a course called Nice Guy, which is a course for guys who are single and guys who want to be able to develop more assertiveness training, right? Most of these courses come at $99. And there you could also purchase the bundle where you guys can purchase all of the courses in one go at a discounted rate, right? We have a bundle for women and a bundle for men. So click in the description down below to check them out. You could browse around and see the courses that you like. And if you don't like them, you guys can ask for a 30-day money back guarantee and I'll give you guys the money back, okay? And in fact, we actually have a new one for women right now we're developing. It's called The Feminine Woman. So if you're a woman watching, this course is specifically to help women become more feminine, to embrace their feminine while embracing their masculine energy. And I'm actually going to make a course for that, like that for men, which is called the Masculine Man, which is a course on how to develop masculinity and develop masculine energy, to attract women in your life, to attract business success in your life, to be able to be better socializing, to read people better. It's truly an all-around course. So if you guys want to check out those courses, click on the description down below where it says purchase the courses, and I'll see you guys inside. Bye-bye.